Strap yourselves in for the sprint. It's time for MotoGP. Short in length, but not short in character, and a challenging layout. 4.34 kilometres, the Red Bull Ring here in Spielberg, just over 2.7 miles. 11 corners with the introduction of the new chicane here 1 year ago, turns 2A and 2B, which complete that first sector. Long lap penalty area, that's up at the first corner. Marco Bezzecchi set the new all-time lap record yesterday, but he finds himself down in 7th place on the grid for the upcoming 14-lap Tissot sprint. Hard braking zones then in sector 2, particularly up the hill into turn 3, down the hill into turn 4. The fast left through 6 and 7, then the hard right through 8 in sector 3, with the lap completed by turns 9 and 10. Always drama here in Spielberg at turn 10. Good afternoon and welcome to a Super Saturday at sunny Spielberg. Beautiful, jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring shots as we peel our way through these stunning Styrian mountains that overlook and provide a spectacular backdrop for this Spielberg circuit as we get set for round 10 in this year's MotoGP World Championship. Coming your way in just over 20 minutes time. There's nothing but drama. Another spectacle in store here in Spielberg as the 14-lap Tissot sprint sees more World Championship points up for grabs in MotoGP. Pecco Bagnaia, the reigning world champion, is 41 points clear in this year's title chase. He starts from a 5th pole position of the season, but there were some hard charges behind him. Maverick Vinales on the factory Aprilia, top 3 in every session so far this weekend. His first front row start upcoming in 2023, his first in 18 races since the British Grand Prix at Silverstone last year, completing that front row. The home hopes of Red Bull and KTM resting on the broad shoulders of Brad Binder, just signing that new 2-year contract for 2025 and 2026 with KTM. Binder also starting from the front row of the grid for the first time this season. Just the second time actually in 62 races. Binder finds himself on the front row in MotoGP. Well, break this, they get the ultimate workout around this 4.34 kilometre Red Bull Ring circuit. It is all about stop and go. Brutal hard braking zones, particularly up the hill into turns 1 and 3, down the hill into turn 4, and then hard acceleration points, which in the past have clearly played into the hands of the factory Ducatis. In terms of Grand Prix races here previously in Austria, on our 9 previous races, 7 times Ducati have prevailed. What lies in store though in the sprint coming up very, very shortly. Matt Burt-Lewis still to be in the commentary box. Simon Crafar is down on pit lane. As we mentioned then, a 1:28.539 from Pecco Bagnaia, taking his 5th pole position of the season. He's been the star of Saturdays despite the slump in Silverstone where he was 14th, the first time he missed the points in a Tissot sprint, but nobody has scored more sprint points than Bagnaia so far this season. 74 of his 214 have come in this new exciting format, which the Austrian fans are going to get to experience for the first time very, very shortly. Good afternoon, Lewis. Really excited by the prospect of this afternoon's Tissot sprint, because not only is this man looking in fantastic form, fantastic Vettel, the Grand Prix winner here in Austria 1 year ago. Bagnaia goes from pole, but behind him are 2 names in particular on that front row, Vinales and Binder, who've not just got 1 lap speed, they've got really good race pace as well.
A mouth-watering prospect, isn't it? Pecco Bagnaia has not really missed in qualifying at any stage this season, never out of the top 5 on a Saturday morning, but he's got his work cut out this afternoon to convert that pole position into sprint victory. 3 different manufacturers on the front row of the grid. Maverick Vinales, who's been quick right throughout the weekend on that factory Aprilia, which has exceeded a lot of expectations. This is a track layout that hasn't suited the Aprilia in the past, but Maverick Vinales has certainly dispelled those myths here this weekend. And of course, Brad Binder, highly motivated at KTM's home Grand Prix to deliver them sprint success. It is going to be box office, particularly from that front row of the grid.
28-year-old Spaniard Maverick Vinales, 18 points he took in Silverstone, his best tally since the opening round in Portimao. He scored just 11 in the previous 5 rounds, so a pick-up in form for Maverick Vinales. Great to see the fans soaking up the Spielberg sunshine. Not going to pretty envious walking through the main grandstand here to our commentary boxes. They're eating the chips, they've got the beers, they're looking very well set and relaxed for this 14-lap Tissot sprint, as is the man on your screens right now. Look how cool, calm and collected Brad Binder looks, and with good reason. Just the second time in his 62 race Grand Prix career in MotoGP, starts on the front row. First time in 14 since he was a front row starter at the Twinning Motegi in Japan. It's already in many respects been a super Saturday for the recently turned 28-year-old, signing a new extension to his current KTM contract, keeps him on board an RC16 for 2025 and 2026. And we expect him to get the whole shot, Lewis. We've seen already so far this season that the KTMs are absolute rocket ships off the start line. Do not be surprised if Binder's leading going up the hill in that first corner.
In fact, I'd be more surprised if he isn't, to be honest, given how those KTMs have got off the line so far. Someone who's going to need a rocket start from the back of the 4th row this afternoon is Jorge Martin, who was livid, I think that's to put it mildly, at the end of qualifying 2 earlier on this morning. The tail of his session was track limits, because he didn't really get a representative lap time on the board, and it's not the first time in Jorge Martin's career that he's lost a good result due to that particular piece of green tarmac. He lost a Moto2 win because of that back in 2020, and as a result of that exceeding of track limits in qualifying earlier on this morning, Martin, not for the first time this season, has to play catch-up in the sprint.
Yeah, he slipped, 41 points behind Pecco Bagnaia in the championship chase. He surrendered 25 in the last 2 rounds to the Ducati Novo team rider. We thought it was very much game one. It still is game one, of course, but when Martin did the double, the sprint and Grand Prix win at the Sachsenring pre-summer break, he was within 16 points, striking distance at Bagnaia, but no podium in the last 2 rounds. Great record here, though, in Spielberg for Jorge Martin. 6 podiums in 9 races, and he's got a good sprint record as well so far. He scored points in all 9 sprints so far this season. What to expect then from this man, Marco Bezzecchi? Well, Friday was phenomenal, wasn't it, for Bez? A new all-time lap record, which he still holds despite this morning's fireworks in qualifying. But Bezzecchi with work to do, Lewis, heading that 3rd row of the grid. The party already starting in the grandstands. We're very, very jealous. We just want to be with them, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We want to share in the loud music that's been booming around this Red Bull Ring circuit. Not necessarily to everyone's taste, but it's certainly been whipping up an atmosphere here at the Red Bull Ring. And as far as Marco Bezzecchi's concerned, if he's going to make some noise from 7th on the grid, he certainly has to get away well. He looks like he's got better pace than that, but he was just the victim of a fiercely competitive Q2 session. Another 10th of a second for Bezzecchi would have put him 3 places higher up the grid. So it was by no means a poor qualifying for Bezzecchi, but he starts from 7th. Joining him on that 3rd row, Fabio Quartararo, who you saw there on screen. It has to be said that for a lot of yesterday and a lot of Q2, it looked as if Quartararo was on course for better than that.
Yeah, Fabio Quartararo, 9th place. Well, the man on the right-hand side of your picture there, in the middle of Marco Bezzecchi, the VR46 rider coach, needs absolutely no introduction, but we'll give him a big one anyway. It's the one, the only, the 9-time world champion, the MotoGP legend, Valentino Rossi, who's been on site to see Bezzecchi and Marini, and of course giving a very close eye on the likes of Frankie Morbidelli and Pecco Bagnaia in the VR46 Academy. There's still a lot of yellow support in the grandstands for Valentino Rossi. He was on hand to give Marco Bezzecchi a taxi ride back to the paddock yesterday after Bez ran out of fuel late on in that dramatic practice session. And it was right here, of course, wasn't it, 2 years ago, where Rossi made that emotional announcement that he was going to be ending his illustrious and very distinguished Grand Prix career. So Rossi back on site, good to see as always. What lies in store for one of the biggest former foes of his Grand Prix career? Marc Marquez goes from a very lowly 18th place on the grid. Good to see Helmut Marko here, Red Bull Motorsport consultant. Of course, whenever we come to this part of the world, Austria in particular, the circuit named after Red Bull Supremo, the late Dieter Mateschitz. Of course, he did so much for Austrian motorsport, didn't he? And of course, Red Bull continuing to be one of the main backers and the loyal stalwarts of so many different categories, so many different teams and riders across all 3 World Championship classes.
Yeah, Helmut Marko central to the rise of many a 4-wheeled world champion, particularly the man who's dominating in that particular field at the moment, Max Verstappen, as the pit lane opens and we get ready to commence the countdown to the 14-lap Tissot Sprint. Marc Marquez heading out to take his place on the back of the 6th row, 18th on the grid for Marc Marquez. His worst qualifying since the 2021 Dutch TT at Assen, and the 3rd worst of his entire MotoGP career. That's the measure of how tough it is for Marc Marquez at the moment, who's having to take unbelievable risks to get a competitive lap time out of that Repsol Honda. Was unable to make his way into qualifying 2 earlier on today. Based on what we've seen, Matt, from Marquez in recent Tissot sprints, you have to wonder what his approach will be in the upcoming 14 laps.
17th in Assen, 18th in Silverstone. It's been dismal recent runs in the sprints. You think that everybody, even over the shorter half-race distance, is going to have to go for the hard Michelin front tyre, just given the fact that it's such aggressive on the front end, the hard braking zones around this Spielberg circuit. And you'll probably have to go for the soft rear tyre as well, just to get the maximum optimum performance over the shorter format. If you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. Of course, this new Tissot Sprint era introduction on Saturday afternoons. Half the number of laps, half World Championship points. Great to see this man. If he's hobbling around the paddock, it's still good to see him back in MotoGP. There is the legacy of that horrendous crash he had in the main Grand Prix in Mugello a few weeks ago. Still no obvious return date for Alex Rins. It seems like the bones are consolidating well, he's recovering well, but it's the nerve damage which is the big question mark, and that's why there's been no specific date set for an Alex Rins return to LTR Honda. But we heard from him yesterday, of course, the man who guided Valentino Rossi and Yamaha to so much success back in the day. He steered Suzuki back to the glory days with Joan Mir in 2020. Always an absolute pleasure to get the thoughts. That was Davide Brivio. I thought we were going to go down to Davide Brivio. It's Davide Tardozzi. He's still Italian, he's still called Davide. We were close. Davide Tardozzi with Simon.
Yes, Davide, your rider, especially Pecco, has looked fantastic yet again. Awesome consistency lately. I saw those new wings on the front and the awesome lap time he did in qualifying. What are you expecting from him in the sprint?
I expect that he fight for the podium. I think that Brad Binder and Maverick Viñales will be very tough guy to beat, but I guess that Pecco has the speed to do it. Anyway, it will be a fantastic race to see, because I think that at least 5 riders can win this race.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to Davide Tardozzi. I'll get there in the end. Yeah, of course, great to hear from the Ducati Lenovo team boss. Well, he said there's probably 5 riders that are more than capable of winning this Tissot Sprint. We've already had 5 different winners so far in the exciting new era. Of course, the most recent one 2 weeks ago in somewhat different conditions over the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. It was Alex Marquez who prevailed for the Gresini Ducati, and that went some way to helping him secure a new contract, 2024, signed and sealed for the former Moto3 and Moto2 world champion. And maybe he's one of those 5 names that you have to factor in here. Keep a close eye on the younger of the Marquez siblings. Alex goes from the middle of that second row from P5. But you have to say that front row, they are the 3 overwhelming candidates for glory in this 14-lap sprint. Bagnaia, Viñales and Binder. Interesting there, we saw it in Silverstone, even in the sprint, Lewis. We know how aggressive you have to be, the stop and go, how much you're on off the throttle here, fuel consumption paramount, and a lot of riders touring as slowly as they possibly dare to get to this grid here as they try and just save a bit of fuel.
Yeah, we rode on board there with Marco Bezzecchi, who was at practically at walking pace, wasn't he, coming around to the grid. The rules are clear on when you've got to leave the grid, but I guess you can take as long as you want to get around to the grid as Fabio Quartararo finally arrives. One spanner in the works, I suppose, on the first lap of this sprint could come in the form of Jack Miller, who starts from 4th on the grid, who's had a pretty tough weekend all told so far, but got through qualifying 1 earlier on this morning. He starts from the front of the second row. He could well be flying formation with Brad Binder on the opening lap as they storm towards the front.
Yeah, let's get some pre-sprint thoughts then. It's a massive weekend for KTM. They love to take glory in this sprint on home turf. Brad Binder on the front row, Jack Miller 4th. Let's get some pre-sprint thoughts from KTM Motorsport Director Pit Mara, who's this on.
Pit, he's just chatting to someone. Pit, I have to say, today is the first time I've ever been able to say KTM have fixed their one-off lap speed.
Well, I mean, yeah. It has been always a weak point of our whole project, the one lapsing and the qualifying and the start position. So today we managed, so we are here 1st and 2nd row, and I feel we can make something out of this, so I'm really, really happy.
And Brad, you know, we all know how he grits his teeth. We've seen it regularly in the sprint. What are you hoping from Brad and Jack today? You must have a better feeling of what's happening.
Well, I mean, we have built up the weekend in a very constructive way, and all the steps were logical. We did to the bike, and the riders felt more and more comfortable. So they have a really good feeling, and especially for the front, braking late. They told me brake performance is incredible. Top speed looks fantastic. So I feel we are in a position to fight for a great result today.
Thanks, Pit, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to Pit Buyer, thanks to Simon Crafart. There's just going to be a short pause now, a minute of silence in memory of Piaggio Group President Roberto Calanino, who unfortunately passed away earlier on today. An impeccably observed minute silence there for Piaggio Group President Roberto Calanino, who sadly passed away. Of course, Piaggio Group owners of Aprilia, so Aleix Espargaro and Maverick Vinales and co-racing in memory of Calanino. And we should also, at this time, spare a thought, send our condolences, thoughts and prayers, love and strength to the family, friends and colleagues of Mirko Giansanti, a former 125cc multiple podium finisher, boss of them, founder of the GRT World Superbike team, sadly losing his life after a long illness. And of course to Haruki Noguchi-san, who sadly passed away after an accident in the Asia Road Racing Championship in Mandalika last weekend.
It's been a tough couple of weeks, hasn't it, for the motorcycle racing fraternity. We race on this afternoon. Of course, on an emotional day for the Aprilia team. They will certainly be racing in his memory. You saw the grid coming through the screen a moment ago. The headlines to pick up from that. 3 riders we saw on the grid who've certainly gone to the grid at this stage on the medium rear tyre. Brad Binder, who starts from the front row of the grid in 3rd, Marco Bezzecchi in 7th, and Frankie Morbidelli, who lines up in 15th on the second of the Monster Energy Yamahas. At this stage, our information is that they have gone to the grid on the medium rear tyre. Everyone else is on the soft.
A sad day for Aprilia and the Piaggio Group, but the show will go on, and they'll try to race in the memory of former chairman Roberto Calanino. Let's get some pre-sprint thoughts. Maverick Vinales looking so strong in 2nd. But Paolo Bonora from Aprilia.
Paolo, we're at a circuit that is not famous to suit the Aprilia. All stop and start, and you're so good at the fast-flowing ones. Clearly, you have made some real progress. There's 3 manufacturers within 1/10, and the Aprilia is in the middle of that with Maverick. Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. We are so excited to be in the 2nd position with Maverick, but since Thursday is the strongest point of his mental situation was so good, so he want to push after the Silverstone race, and we found something, to be honest, in particular in his side and in his bike, because we have helped him in the hard-braking corner, and since last year's was not our best track, but at the moment we are looking forward to have a good result here.
We're excited too. Best of luck.
Thanks so much.
We certainly are excited. The clock ticking down and a countdown towards our 10th Tissot sprint of the season, just under 5 minutes away from lights out. Marco Bezzecchi then There was no hat-trick of poles. The pole man in Assen, the pole man in Silverstone didn't go his way this morning. Valentino Rossi having a little chat with Bezzecchi's crew chief there, Matteo Flamini. They worked so close together when they were at Ducati and Yamaha. Flamini was Valentino Rossi's data engineer for so many years. He handpicked Matteo to be Marco Bezzecchi's crew chief when he stepped up to MotoGP. He knew what an ally Flamini could be for Marco Bezzecchi. What a partnership they have formed. I guess the question mark that's lingering over the heads of Mini VR46 and Marco Bezzecchi right now, it seems to be, well, will he take the GP24 in Pramac Racing, or will he stay put? And will loyalty win the day? And will he stay with VR46? There was some breaking news prior to this sprint. It does seem that Johann Zarco is about to confirm, or has confirmed, very close indeed to LCR Honda, of course. That would suggest that he's out of Prima Pramac Racing. And then it's anyone's guess about, well, it's Bezzecchi, Morbidelli, Jake Dixon. They've all been names mentioned in the action for Ducati next year.
Yeah, tough decision facing Marco Bezzecchi. He would love to be at Mini VR46, he'd love to be on a GP24, but it doesn't sound like he could had both. Simon, we can cross down to you. The grid is starting to clear. Let's cross down to you for some final pre-race thoughts.
I was looking for Pablo Nieto, Bezzecchi's team manager, because I have a feeling that even though Marco's not really good in qualifying on the grid positions, I think he's got the pace in the race.
Yeah, thanks for that, Simon. Marco Bezzecchi has shone in terms of race rhythm. He looked very comfortable in the 2 sessions yesterday with the hard front, medium rear tyre. That was work he was doing predominantly for the Grand Prix tomorrow, but certainly with one eye on this afternoon's T-Soy sprint. Now you can see then on the screens clearly 14 laps coming your way as the BMW safety car peels away. Start the real big sharp rise up into the first corner. Real tricky braking zone into turn 1. There's a 65 metre elevation change, over 230 feet around this Red Bull Ring circuit in Spielberg. As the drone camera picks up the pre-sprint tension, the pre-sprint atmosphere here in Austria, KTM fans are out in force, aren't they? Will they see Brad Binder win this 14-lap T-Soy sprint? He goes from the front row for just the second time in his MotoGP career. Maverick Vinales on the front row of the grid in MotoGP for the first time in over a year, with Pecco Bagnaia back on pole position for the 5th time this season. He's been the sprint star so often on Super Saturdays in 2023, as more success beckoning for Bagnaia from pole.